Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Real Estate Experience. As always, I truly appreciate you being on here, and it's my absolute objective to drop absolute bombs, golden gems, to give you takeaways from my personal experience, trials, tribulations, good, bad, the ugly, as a entrepreneur investor in the industry, and also have other investors share their experiences as guests as well. And we are in the year 2020. 2019 is closed. It's in the books, and also that decade as well. My question to you is, and also comment below of your expectations that you have for 2019 that you set, whether that's goals or your priorities. How do you feel with that? Is it a break even or so-so, or is it down? It was one of your worst years. Would love to hear that for you. Maybe you don't want to mention if it was your worst year. And for myself personally, is I would say it's a so-so, because I believe it was a good year, but I could always use improvement, of course. And just the three keys that I had was, one, bring on 500 additional multifamily units to my portfolio. I was roughly around about 300, so did not get that. My second one was really going in on the self-improvement, which I did. Majority of the cash that I was able to accumulate, I invested right back into myself, attending boot camps, conferences, courses, training. So that was good. Learning more on mindset, sales, being a better leader, management, etc. And then also the next one was network, building more of not just on the business side with relationships, but also personal too. And I'm still working with that and becoming just family oriented is what I'm getting towards. So there is that. So comment below on how your 2019 was. And then one thing I want to mention too is the 31-day challenge. If you haven't heard about it, it is the tools, tactics to get you your first deal or even your next one, whether that is finding deals, bringing on investors, how to structure the deal, and just overcoming limiting beliefs as well. Because what I witness most people is they believe that they have to have a large amount of cash to get started, or that they need to have credit. There's all types of excuses and limiting beliefs someone have, and those can easily be shattered and replaced with more empowering beliefs. So 31-day challenge, you'll want to visit sterlingwhiteofficial.com. That is sterlingwhiteofficial.com. So let's drop right into things. Super ecstatic, where today's topic is going to be the top value add things to look for in a multi-family deal. So I'm just going to go over a couple. And the value add term is so loosely thrown around nowadays. There's so much that can go into that. But the first thing I want to go into is the expenses, looking at that. And this is the first item that you can look at that you can decrease, and that's the value that you bring to the asset. And so when you receive the T12, which is the trailing 12 profit and loss from the owner, once you're looking to submit an offer on the property. So once you've got that trailing 12, of course, you want to get financials as far back as you can. And then also you want to get the rent roll too. But you're just looking in it and seeing this is the top line income. This is the income that it produces. And when you're looking at the expenses, properties should be running at C class, D class, B class, A class type assets tend to run at certain standards. I'll just provide you a case study. So the apartment Buckridge at Southport, it's a C-class asset in a B location. When it was able to obtain the financials from the owner, saw that the expenses were at 70%. That type of asset should be running between about 50 to 55% expense ratio, especially in that specific location, which is about a B minus to B. And so that right there showed you from the start that, hey, these can be decreased. Of course, you want to dig a little bit deeper and find out why it's running that high on expenses. And it was determined that a lot of the repairs, it was misclassifications for one, so it was just mismanaged overall. But a lot of the improvements that were made would not have transitioned to myself once I purchased that specific apartment, which was 80 units here in Indianapolis, and that was 2018. Believe February or so. All the days and months and years are just comment below if you have that too. Everything is just merging together. So yeah, once looked at the financials, one of the expenses was balconies, and the balconies, that was one of the things that it was a huge issue at that specific community. So the owner put in a significant amount of cash to stabilize those and also repair those, and those were in the expenses, which would not translate because they were finished, they were done, and they were up to officially code, and that's something that would not need to be addressed at a later time unless they started to deteriorate, but they were completely updated essentially and fixed. So there's that. So once acquired that deal, that was so that specific property was purchased for around 3.35 million, and then ended up putting just under between about 200,000 to about 400,000 in terms of renovations, but they all went to the interior units to really just push up those rents, which those improvements were very simple, with installing vinyl plank flooring, two-tone paint scheme throughout, and then also updating the countertops as well, and then doing some resurfacing on the cabinetry. I'm going a little bit too much into all the details, but firstly, just looked at, okay, the expenses are high. This is something that we can go in based upon the market, push those expenses down, and now we're about a 55% expense ratio on that deal, and can even push it down with where we're seeing with some of the repairs and also some other expenses that can be decreased even more. So that's that. And the next is the income, and the income, you can determine that, okay, this can be further pushed up by seeing that, okay, the rents and this is one measurement that I love to use, which is the rent per square foot. So the 156 unit, and I just love providing these case studies for you, and these can even be done on smaller deals that are 4 units, 5 units, etc. But looked at the rent per square footage and saw that it was 70 cents. The market was between 90 cents and $1. So that alone shows you that, hey, the income can be pushed up. Of course, there is things that needed to be done to that property, such as the interior renovations. There was the roofs needed to all be replaced, which going through that at this moment with replacing all the roofs. And just a little bit of a segue. So one learning lesson on that was the construction manager, which I accept full responsibility for it. And this is just me providing a experience to you. And this is why it's good to always raise more than what you need and to provide a buffer. So essentially the construction manager got the quote from the vendor that said, okay, this is going to be the cost to replace the roofs. However, they assumed that it included, so there was 4 roofs that were flat, and then the remaining were pitched. That quote did not include the 4 flat roofs. So that ended up costing between about 100 to 150 grand that had to pay additionally to take care of those flat roofs, because those flat roofs needed to be replaced within the next 1 to 2 years. So decided to do it sooner rather than later. So that's just me sharing that experience, and that always, now that individual knows that, hey, I need to further dial in on this and see that, okay, that actually he mentioned that he looked at his phone and analyzed it, and that's where the mistake was made. But moving forward, he knows now that, hey, I need to actually further dig deep into this quote and ensure that everything's under it. Mistakes like that happen all the time, and it's just always good to mitigate your risk and have enough buffer when you raise the money to take care of repairs and not be slimmed down on that. So going back to the income side, I know I took a little bit of a segue there. I tend to do that oftentimes, squirrel. So rent per square footage was 70 cents, and then saw that the market was between 90 to $1. So through that's where you can see the value add that you can go in there and increase those rents, which increases the overall income of the property and increases the overall value of the asset as well. So there's that. And then the next one is going to be the management. The management, and this is what I've ran into, because I always go for the mom and pop operators. And by mom and pop operator, that's someone who is not as sophisticated in terms of when they're operating a property. And those are the people that you can usually get a great deal, a good deal in today's market. And oftentimes you can get a great deal. So through through that is another 80 unit that I ended up purchasing that was in Louisville, Kentucky. It was completely mismanaged, and the owner is definitely a great guy, and I was able to build that relationship with that individual. But I remember the first time I called them, and this is why I always mention to everyone, is it takes between the 6 to 8 touch just to get in contact with the decision maker. So it's always persistence. And then when I finally got in contact, gave them the pitch that I wanted to purchase their property. They weren't interested. So this is where the whole follow-up came into play. But I remember visiting the property. This was the first month or shortly after I made that contact, just to give a tour and see the amount of work that needed to be needed, because I knew that at some point they would sell, and he did express that. He just mentioned that not right now is the good time. The owner wasn't really motivated at that present time. So I ended up being in Louisville, and this is why I always mention it's good to get FaceTime with someone, because you can build that rapport. So I walked a couple units, and the story I got was it was about 60 to 65% occupied, and it was that the occupancy was that for a while. And I mean, there was a couple units that I walked through that were down for years, meaning that the owner owned it free and clear, and the cash that they were getting at 60% occupancy was fine to them because they owned it free and clear, and they were still getting income. So that was good. So that showed, hey, that was the mismanagement there, is those units were not getting turned. The occupancy was at 65%. So the income wasn't there. Maybe the owner was still able to get income on their side. But however, at the end of the day, that's where the value was created. And there was the income itself, so pushing the occupancy up, and then also each of the rents were behind as well. They were below market. Of course, had to put in the necessary capital to be able to push up those rents. And it was a similar type of renovation that was with the 80 unit in Indianapolis, which was taking the countertops and replacing with Formica. And not granted by any means, Formica is just a step down, and it's very affordable and looks great. You don't want to put granite countertops on. I would say, me personally, you don't really get as much of a bang for your buck when you put granite countertops in a unit that's going to rent for between $700 to $850. If your market shows that, then yes, that's something that you would want to do, but that was not the case. And then resurfacing the countertop, installing the vinyl plank flooring throughout more of the higher traffic areas, and then carpet within the bedroom. So that was that on the management side. And then another value add, so there's the expenses. Going in, being able to push the expenses down, that's the value that you create. On the income side, being able to drive the income, generally you can see that, okay, if the units, the specific rents are below market, okay, you can push those rents up to, and a good measurement is rent per square foot. And you can call comparable properties that are to yours. Of course, if there's a 4 unit that you're looking to buy, and then you're looking at you're trying to get comps from a 120 unit, that's not a comparable property. You want to get one that's nearby, same age in which it was built, and same type of structure, whether same type of built. Not year built, but whether it's brick, for instance. So there's that. And once you're able to pull those comps and see, okay, I can increase the rents by putting this amount of capital, these types of renovations into it. Okay, that's the value that you create. And then on the management side is that I gave you that case study of seeing that, okay, the occupancy was 65%, and it was most of those units were down for even years. So that's the value that you can create through increasing the occupancy, and then also those rents were below market, and just providing more of a professional management. There was times where the office, I would say just professional management, because that was more mom and pop, where the son was the one that was managing it and did not want to be in the management business whatsoever and had no business experience. Great guy. Always want to mention that, was able to build that relationship. So the son was the influencer, and the father is the one that was the decision maker ultimately. And I can go all into the sales, but I influenced the son impressed on his pain points, which he was burnt out in terms of managing it, and pushed those pain points. And ultimately, he was the convincer to the decision maker to sell the property. So that is the management. And then one of the first things I love to do on mismanaged properties is to rebrand it. By rebranding, I mean that changing the name is one thing that can be completed. Another one is, well, changing the name. And then when you change the name is to change it over all publications. So that's apartments.com, apartment guide. There's tons of ones that are out there. Google is another place that you want to change it. And then the signage also. So you would just, whatever sign is there. So that 80 unit that was in Louisville was formerly Bentwood Apartments and renamed it to Dunwoody Court. So swapped out the current sign that was there, demoed that one, and then replaced it with one that was better quality. Yeah, it went online and changed all the names that was on there as well. One thing that allows is, especially if the property has a bad stigma, that people see, okay, this is the new owners are coming in, it's going to be a fresh start, and they're actually going to take care and make this more of a community versus a property. Those are the main things that you get from rebranding. I like to call it a community versus a property. Yeah, so that's that. All right, so those are the top things to look for when you're looking to provide value add to a specific property. If you happen to have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out. Also, comment below on the top things that you do to increase the value of a property upon acquisition, or that you look for before actually acquiring it. I'll catch you on the next one. And I have to mention it is, if you haven't already, join the 31-day challenge. It's a way for people who are just looking to get started to get their first deal, or even their next one that they're working towards. And you get to work directly with me, where I ultimately am your guide and work to put you in the best position to succeed, to get you that first or even that next deal that you're working towards within 60 days. So I'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to The Real Estate Experience. If this has brought you any value, please subscribe and leave a 5-star rating. It would mean the world to me. Now go out there and crush it.